Hi everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and in today's video I will be creating a fall slimline pop-up box card using some stamp sets from the Not Too Shabby shop and from my own shop. I will be using my slimline pop-up box die, and I'm going to pull in some leaves from Slimline Designs. For the stamp sets I chose Pumpkin Spice Everything and You, Me, and Pumpkin Spice. I stamped out a couple of the images from both stamp sets with Memento Tuxedo black ink on 110-pound white Neenah cardstock, and I'm going to color them in with my Copic markers. Now, I have used these stamp sets in previous videos, so you might want to skip through the coloring because I basically chose very similar colors to what I used on that first video. But I did use my zigs on that video, and this time I'm using my Copics, so it's a little bit different in that way. I do have a couple more subscribers that might have not seen my first video with these stamps, so I decided to leave in the coloring. Now, I chose very fall colors. So I stuck with oranges, yellows, reds, brown, and more of an olive green color. And then I also pulled in this RV combination. This is RV99, RV66, and V05. I was scrolling through Instagram for inspiration and I saw a lot of fall colors with this really pretty purpley magenta color, and I definitely wanted to use that in today's card. It's just a really pretty pinky purple color. So for my coffee cups, I'm going to make them white. And you can see I'm coloring both of the pumpkin images simultaneously. That's how I like to color because I make cards 10 times with one design. My brain automatically thinks to color everything in at the same time with that particular color. So if you saw my previous video with these stamps, I paper pieced the scarf on that one pumpkin and then that larger coffee cup with the whipped cream on the other stamp. And I love how that turned out, so I decided to do it again in today's video. So you're going to see that I stamped out the same images onto some pattern paper by Pink and Main. I fussy cut the images that I wanted to paper piece, and then I'll just glue them on top of these colored pumpkins. Now this leaf, I wanted it to transition from red to orange to yellow, and I really like how that one turned out. For this cupcake, I'm going to make the wrapper olive green, and then I always envision this cupcake as like a carrot cake cupcake because that's like, I feel like the most fall dessert that I personally really like. So I made the icing the cream cheese icing and just kept it white. So I'm going to color up that last little acorn, and then I can start paper piecing my elements. So I paper pieced the sleeves on those two coffee mugs next to the scarfed pumpkin. I'm going to add a magenta, the same color as that leaf, for my whipped cream coffee cup. And then for my pumpkin's scarf, I chose a muted blue color. So I stuck with very earthy colors, nothing super bright here. For the center of my whipped cream cup, I wanted to add a yellow leaf, and I just used the reverse side of that blue pattern paper because it was double-sided paper. And now I can start coloring in the rest of my little images. So I am coloring this pumpkin in, but I didn't end up using it, and I colored it in more of a yellow-orange color combination. And then I used the same olive greens, which was G99 and G94. I will try to list out all of the markers that I used in today's video for my coordinating blog and for my description. I am recording this video early in the morning, so I probably won't have the blog up until tonight. So if you're watching on Sunday morning, definitely check in again either tomorrow or later tonight. So I colored the little coffee mug in the same yellowy orange combination, and then all my acorns were the same browns. I try not to pull in any additional colors. I try to use what I have already on my desk just to keep everything cohesive. But for these squirrels, I did pull in some warm grays. Now, warm grays have more of a brown tone, and I felt like they would match better with my earthy colors. So that's why I went with the warm grays as opposed to the cool grays, which are more of a blue undertone. So I chose W6, W4, W2, and W1 for these little squirrels. And whenever I color with my Copics, I like to start with my darkest marker, map out my shadows, then go over the darkest color with my midtones. Usually I only use 3 markers, but for some reason I used 4 today. And then I leave just a little bit of white space for my highlight color and blend all the colors together with that marker. For his little scarf, I chose that RV combination again. And then that will complete my coloring. I'm going to scan and cut all of these images. And then I'm going to work on my leaves, which I cut from that Sherry Lynn Designs die set. And I cut these leaves from coordinating colored cardstock that matched my Copic colors. I wanted everything to be cohesive here. And I wanted to add a little bit of shading to them, so I'm using some different Distress Oxide inks. So for that magenta color, I used Seedless Preserves. For the orange leaves, I used Carved Pumpkin and Abandoned Coral. And then for these yellow leaves, I'm going to use the same Carved Pumpkin and Abandoned Coral, and that's going to create that red to yellow transition. Those were actually my favorite leaves. And then for the red ones, I'm going to use Abandoned Coral, and I'll actually pull in some frayed burlap because you can see that they're very similar colors, the Abandoned Coral and the red paper that I chose. So adding the brown just adds a little bit more dimension. And I also chose pretty bright colors, so adding in red and brown helps to mute them a little bit. So I cut these leaves from some darker brown cardstock. Again, I'll use frayed burlap on those. And then for my green leaves, you can see I chose a really bright green, and then I went over it with pine needles, and then I added just a little bit more brown to mute them and make them look more fallish. So I die cut some panels from my Slimline pop-up box die. These are the panels to decorate the box. So these ones are the top flaps, and I wanted to create a gradient with my panels. So the bottom panels are going to be purple and orange. So those are going to be Seedless Preserves and Carved Pumpkin, and then these top flaps are Carved Pumpkin and Mustard Seed. So I'm doing all of the top panels now, and I cut extras so that I can decorate the outside of the box and the inner flaps of the box. So I cut 4 of the long panels with the ornate flourish edge, and then 4 of the smaller ones with the flourish edge. And then for the bottom panels, I only cut 2 of the longer pieces and 2 of the shorter pieces because there's no point in decorating the inside of the box because you're not going to see it. So I just kept for the panels that are going to be shown outside the box. And again, I'm going to use Seedless Preserves at the bottom and Carved Pumpkin at the top. And here you can see what that gradient looks like. Really pretty. I wanted to show that with these boxes, you can use pattern paper, or you can ink blend or create your own pattern paper. So I used my Distress water sprayer and added a couple water droplets to these panels. I have quite a few, so I have to do 2 batches here. And I'm using a paper towel to pick up all the excess water. Because I use Nina cardstock, you can't really see much of that texture the water gives, but if you used watercolor paper, you'll definitely see it more. So I'm also going to be adding some gold splatters using my Gonzai Kuretake Gold pearlescent watercolor here. Usually I go for my silver color, but because I chose warm colors, I thought the gold would be more fitting. So I'm going to splatter on some gold specks onto my leaves as well, just so that everything kind of coordinates. And I love that this created sort of an artsy look. Now you can see my glass mat is getting very messy, but I do have to still do the bottom panels of my box. So I'll splatter on some more watercolor, and then I'm going to clean up my glass mat. And I left it in the video because I think it's so satisfying seeing these glass mats get cleaned so easily. And sometimes I use a baby wipe, and sometimes I just use my spray bottle and a paper towel to pick everything up. And you can see my tripod is getting in the way. I've gotten a couple comments telling me to get a new tripod, and I finally did. I knew the first thing I wanted to buy after my release was this really high-tech tripod, which is quite the investment, I must say, but I think it's worth it because it sits on the side of my desk and there's an arm that overhangs my phone to film, so you're not seeing any of the tripod legs, and for some reason it also does not show a reflection, which is really great. So I already love it so much. It's not getting in the way, and I think the quality of my videos are going to be much better. I also got a new phone, so I don't know if you noticed, the camera quality is a bit better than it was. So I added on my ink blended panels onto my box, and I added my double-sided tape to the tabs with the bottom panels. If you add the tape to the side without the bottom panels, your box is going to be inside out. So I'm going to fold the score lines just to train them and help to create that box shape. And then I'm going to lay the two panels flat next to each other, and with one of the panels with the tab, I will attach it to the other panel without the tab, and then same thing on the opposite side. And that's going to create the box shape. Here it is. It's a slimline, so it's nice and long. When the box is folded flat, it's 9 inches across by 4 inches tall, and when it's popped up, it's 7 inches across, so you have a lot of real estate to work with. So I am now attaching the bridges, which come in the die set, and this basically holds all your elements inside the box. And included with that die, it's basically just a long strip of cardstock with 2 score lines at the ends so that you can glue them into the box. So I added double-sided tape to those tabs and added them inside the box. I just added 2, and I tried to space them apart pretty evenly. You can add more than 2, but with the slimlines I like to just add 2, and then I use the actual card base, so the front of the card base and the back of the card base, as more layers to the card. So you're going to see what I'm talking about in just a second. But I'm going to start gluing in my stamped images. I did glue those green scallop borders inside the box. I do have a die for that. And that's basically just going to hold all of my stamped images, and that way I don't have to use any acrylic sticks to pop them up. This way they just glue right on top of that green scallop border. And it also adds like a little decorative touch. The majority of it is going to be covered up by the images, but you will see some of it peeking through. But I mostly added it so that I could add my stamped elements inside the box. And the scallop border does come in my lace border die set. I will have it linked down below. So here I'm just filling in the box with my different stamped images. Now, with the box, that highest point you see on the back, you cannot exceed that point. So that squirrel over to the left, which is at its highest point, I made sure that the ears did not exceed that point. And that way it will still fold flat into a number 10 size business envelope. So I have so many leaves, and I wanted to add a couple to the front flap of my box. And here you can see what I meant when I used the front of the card base. I glued some of the leaves directly onto the card base, and I added the glue in front of the die cut instead of behind to make sure that it attached. You might have noticed that I also added some leaves directly onto the back of the card base, as well as a couple acorns. Here I am changing out one of the smaller leaves for this larger brown one. So I would recommend using a glue called 3-in-1 or any sort of repositionable glue, just because I don't think anyone really commits with these boxes. I move a lot of things around, and if I were to use art glitter glue, it's going to pretty much instantly adhere and there's no moving anything. So I'm going to attach a couple leaves to the front flap, and then I can start to work on my sentiment. So I die cut a slimline stitch banner from some brown cardstock, and I'm going to white heat emboss the sentiment. Coffee is always better with a friend. This sentiment comes in the Pumpkin Spice Everything stamp set, and it fits perfectly onto this banner. So I'm going to white heat emboss it. And I think the embossing powder that I'm using is by Simon Says Stamp. So I'll go ahead and heat set that, and I'm going to place this sentiment between those two leaves that I added onto the front flap of the box. And I really like how that turned out. I'm glad I went with a brown banner instead of a black. And then that is the completed little scene. I love how the leaves fill in the area, and those pumpkins are super pretty with the squirrels, are so cute. And I think my favorite thing about this card are the ink blended panels. They did take quite a bit of extra time, but I think it was worth it because the colors of inks that I chose really match the copic colors that I used on the stamped images. So the card looks very custom made. And here I'm just showing that it does fit into a number 10 size business envelope. And then you can just pull it right out of the envelope and it will pop into place. So all of the products that I used will be linked down below. I just want to thank Jamie for allowing me to use my own products to promote her products. I love that this industry is so collaborative, and Jamie has been so nice to me and supportive for my own business. So yeah, if you haven't yet already, please subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell so you're notified when I post another video, and I will see you next time. Bye!